I've helped startups raise $425 million. I've been a part of 4 exits at $2.5 billion. Like, now you can see, okay, well, this guy charges a good amount, but look at the results he's had. So maybe the value is in fact there, and this is worth the conversation that I want to have. And that was the most awkward thing I just said right there in talking about myself and those accomplishments. I felt weird just saying it, but what the hell? It's Friday.
Welcome back to the High Ticket Systems Podcast. Everyone, please welcome the one and only Mr. Jeff Lerner. Jeff, how you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing well, Jordan. How about you?
Fantastic, my friend. Happy to be here. Let's see. First question we always ask every guest is, what's your offer and who is it for? Basically, what do you sell and who's it for?
Yeah, so I'm a fractional CMO for startups and small businesses. Those organizations that are either have seen and experienced some growth and some level of success and have hit a wall and are looking to kind of get past that, or organizations that are relatively new and have a great product or a service that they're bringing to market, but don't necessarily have the brand to kind of back up and partner with their product. So I come in, work with them, help them with their positioning and go-to-market strategies, and hopefully help them, raise a lot of money, exit, get acquired, all those good things.
No, I love it. Let's see. In regards to clients that you currently work with, I know it might span pretty widely, but what are some industries you're currently working in?
Yeah, I tend to have a lot in the B2B space, specifically tech and SaaS and some of those, different solutions. I've also had a lot of logistics and supply chain clients over the years because I had a role, in that industry for a couple of years. And so I understand it and speak the language. And so I do work in that category a bit. And then, on the B2C front, I do get some clients that come to me that are looking to bring to market, their products. And, especially in very saturated markets where there's a lot of competition, they come to me to help me overcome some of those challenges of how they can differentiate and stand out amongst the competition.
For sure. Thanks for the context. Most of the audience are B2B operators, so I'm going to ask some questions on that side. So imagine you and I just partnered up. I'm going to bring you on as a fractional CMO. What are some immediate things you're going to take a look at and do to help the business grow?
Yeah, the first thing I do, honestly, is listen and ask a lot of questions. You're not bringing me in as someone who's just going to show up with my playbook of what to execute. My playbook comes from what I'm hearing from the founder, from the leadership team, the questions that I'm asking. It can get cumbersome from founders because I'm constantly poking holes at things they say or things that the sales team or others in the organization may be talking about. But the goal of that really is to pull out the narrative, pull out the way in which the organization is going to market. And once I have that foundation in place, then I can help craft the outgoing messaging, what the strategy needs to look like, how to bring cohesion among all the different groups and stakeholders within the organization to make sure they're telling the same story. So it is a lot of questions. It's a lot of, time to just discuss the business and the ultimate goals that they're looking to achieve.
Gotcha. When it comes to, let's pretend for a second, you understand the narrative. My goal, I want more clients. I want to scale responsibly, right? Do you have any avenues, strategies, marketing frameworks you would want to implement into my business to help me grow? And I'm using my business just as the example.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, it really, every company is going to have their own unique approach that I'm going to take to it. But I'm going to look at the business. In this case, I'm going to look at your business. I'm going to do an assessment. So I have tools that I've built, AI tools that will do an assessment, in partnership with the inputs that I give it to really help understand your positioning, where you are in your go-to-market, how you're differentiated or not differentiated. And then I'm going to be building a plan that says, hey, look, here's what you got going on and here's what's going well. And here are some of those opportunities that we really need to dive into and focus on. And once we focus on some of the internal implementation, then now it's, here's how we can bring that to market. Here's what your messaging should be to reinforce to your audience, to your ICP, where you do add value and what you can bring to them in terms of a solution. So it's both the internal side of how do we do it and what do we need to build or say to create that, but then the external of how do we then tell the audience we want to hear it, how do we tell them that message and get them to take the action that we want?
I think that's my favorite thing internally in my business, always refining my messaging and my offer. And also on behalf of clients as well. Like earlier today, I had a working session with the client. It was like an hour and a half call. And that's all we did because they have this new product that they want to bring to market. And it was just very fun for me from a business owner strategist standpoint on, honing in the messaging, really dialing in the offer, coming up with different creatives that we can utilize. It was really fun for me. I imagine you enjoy that process as well.
I do. It's especially when I'm working with founders who don't have a marketing background, which is a lot of them. They start off when I ask them to tell me about their business, their product, their solution. They're giving me feature sets and telling me all of the cool things that their product can do. And that's great, but that's not the reason why someone's going to want to buy it or use it. And so I ask a lot of why questions. So when they say, well, we can do X, Y, and Z, I'm like, well, why is that important? Our product will allow you to, tackle these three tasks that, our typical audience might have on their plate. My response, why is that important? Why would someone want to buy this versus something else? Why did you even build this in the first place? And so there's a lot of that gets pulled out because founders are usually great at thinking about their product and what they want it to do. They don't always think about the how it's actually going to land and why someone would actually want to use it or buy it.
That is so great point, my friend. And as you're articulating yourself there about getting to the root of everything, I kind of had like a moment in time where I was like early college days. I was like, I don't know, 19 years old. And I kind of had that same approach about life and like philosophy about life. Like, why do we do things? Okay. Like after we have that answer, ask why again. And you bring it to the marketing and business forefront. And I think it's very, very applicable. And sometimes, maybe from your own experience, maybe from my experience, but when you are asking these founders the why question, and like the fifth one, they kind of get stumped. They're like, why am I actually doing it this way? Or why am I trying to solve this problem? And if you can really extract that data from them, it kind of shifts their perspective, shifts their lens. But you can't tell someone from a dictatorship approach saying, hey, change it to this way because I already know the market is going to want this. You have to ask them why. So very, very high five to you,
And the number of times I've worked with a founder who has, as we go through this process and I ask those questions, that we ultimately make a change to the product in some way before it goes live or very early on, is probably 70% of the time. And it's because they didn't think of it from that perspective of the why someone would buy it. So there are times where it's, as I'm asking those questions and they have the epiphany of, oh, yeah, okay, like why would someone buy this? Well, they would buy it if it could really help them do X, Y, and Z. We had actually built this to do ABC. They're very similar. We need to make a slight tweak to some of what we're doing here because then it actually solves the issue and the need, not just is promoting what it is that, the capabilities of the product or the tool. And so those are the conversations I love the most, when there are those aha moments of, okay, we need to make some sort of minor pivot or adjustment so that we really do have a product or a solution that will be valued by our target audience and they would want to engage or buy it.
I love that. I freaking love that, my friend. Fractional CMOs are so interesting. Don't go into specifics, please don't. But from a pricing model, how do you typically work?
Yeah, so I mean, I have pricing on my website, right? Like, and it's because people come and they want to know. I'm a business of one. So, my pricing model is you're hiring me. And I'm very clear that I'm not a marketing agency. I am not, when I land a client, I'm not going out and hiring a junior level person to really come service it while I just kind of sit here making money off of it and not really doing anything. That's not my approach. So I take only a select, number of clients at any given time. And depending on the scope, really determines what that pricing looks like. So if it's sometimes a client is, look, we need a full-time, they don't want to hire a full-time CMO, but they really want someone full-time for 3 to 6 months as they're going through a big strategic change, as they're trying to raise a round of financing. And so that has a much different price tag to it than, a startup that says, look, we don't need full-time anything at this stage. We want, 10 hours of your time any given week. And so these engagements can range from, 5 to 7,000 a month, anywhere up to 25,000 a month, all depending on what the actual, scope of work looks like and what we decide makes the most sense for those organizations.
Thanks for being so transparent.
Yeah.
What led you to shift into being a fractional CMO, if you don't mind me asking?
It's, it's so cliche when they talk about like variety is the spice of life. And I almost want to punch myself for saying that right here on this podcast. But when I look at it and I realize that, I've been part of organizations, I've been, part of organizations where I've stayed for a long time. And you learn a few things as you go through and as you get older. And obviously one of the big life lessons is, organizations always ask for loyalty, but they don't give it back. And I find that to be so utterly frustrating. I've been through it. I have friends that have been through it, where you give your blood, sweat, and tears for years to a company only to wake up one day and they're just like, hey, we decided to go in a different direction. And that's a gut punch for so many reasons, but it also is the proof, right, that you are disposable. And of course, as you should be, right? Like every employee, that's what working and having a job and all that stuff is all about. And so I kind of wanted to get away from that. And at the same time, going back to that variety, is I've learned so much because I have an opportunity to work with so many different clients. I've been, I've had an opportunity to work in healthcare. I've had an opportunity to work with organizations in fintech. I have an opportunity to work with, with private equity firms. And so I'm getting all of this exposure to the way in which business is actually getting done across so many verticals and learning so many new things that I never would get if I was solely focused on one business and one business alone.
Amazing insights. How do you currently attract clients for the company? Because you work in many different, not work in, but you understand the question. I'll shut up.
Yeah. I've been really fortunate that, kind of all of my business, has been through referral and word of mouth and introductions that people have made. I like to say my work is the marketing. So by producing good work and having, great clients who refer me to others, that continues to be really, really beneficial. And obviously I'm so appreciative of what that, has looked like for me. At the same time, it is also the thing that keeps me up at night, because you never know when the well dries up or something happens. And so I'm, sit here and be like, well, I don't really have the robust pipeline of, new business that I could just, add something new to my portfolio, tomorrow if I needed to. So, but as they always say, as a marketer, I am the worst marketer of myself and what I do. It's both a combination of humility and I don't openly love to just talk about hey, look how great I am at this, or look what I did here. Because I find it awkward to talk about myself. so I come on podcasts and I do these things and, hope people see it and, then want to learn more and have a conversation with me. But, it's hands down the part of my business that gives me the most anxiety. I know that I can serve the clients that I have extremely well. I know I can help them accomplish their goals and do all of the work at an extremely high level. I don't always know where my next client's going to come from. And, that hasn't bit me in the ass yet, but, that's just the reality that I face every day.
You have a lot of courage, and I really want to acknowledge that within you for saying that on the podcast. I've asked obviously everyone that question, not obviously, but and they say like 10% of what you just said, but how you articulated yourself right now was how they feel, but they just didn't have the courage to say it. And I just again want to acknowledge that within you. Thank you for
Thank
saying
you.
that, bro. No, seriously, like because you yeah, I'm gonna sound like I'm from the streets, but you're a real ass mofo for saying I don't know how else to frame it, but like just damn, just thank you for saying that, bro.
Look, I'm transparent with anyone I talk to. I'm transparent with my clients. I tell them when there are things that are going right, going wrong, when there's, opportunities missed. I'm transparent when I talk to people and I ultimately tell them, hey, I'm not the right fit for you. Maybe I can introduce you to someone who is, instead of just taking the business and hopefully trying to figure it out later. Because that's not how I operate, and that's not the lesson I want my kids to learn. That's not, kind of anything that goes along with it. I want to be the best version of myself every single day, and that means the best version of myself for me, for them, for my clients, and everyone in between.
No, I love it. On the topic of client acquisition, have you tried anything, whether it's like LinkedIn, cold calling, actively like making time to network? Have you tried anything at all?
Yeah, so I did a little, like LinkedIn drip campaign, thing last year, as a friend had recommended it. Um, I was extremely skeptical going in, but, built the list of founders and all of these things. And to be honest, it performed exactly as I thought it would, which is I had meetings on my calendar and they were either A, ridiculously underqualified of, you get a lot of like, hey, this is great. I'd love to bring you on. My budget's $500 or $1,000. Can you build my go-to-market strategy? Or, I would get a lot of, hey, this is great. Like, can you work on equity only? And, while I appreciate the sentiment of that, when I'm not the ultimate decision maker, I am certainly not going to, operate on equity only because it means I am, all the control is lost. What was the most common was I'd get on the call and immediately someone would just be pitching me their services and telling me how what they do is better than my LinkedIn outreach, and they're going to fill my calendar with qualified leads. And so I stopped, right? Like, because it was not remotely delivering an ROI or even the experience I wanted. Like I would see a call added to my calendar and like get that cringy feeling of like, oh, here we go again. And I just didn't want that.
Damn, that the third one you brought up is just jaw dropping. You're doing outreach to these businesses or these individuals, and they book a call with you just so they can
Yeah.
pay their services. That is so wild
Yeah.
to me. That's insane.
Because they would, like, my, the tool I would have and, the way I pulled, name, it was based on like criteria. And so they were, their title was a founder and CEO or whatever it was. And, organization's been around for, however long. And then they'd be like, oh yeah, no, I'm the founder of Lead Outreach, company. And like, we can actually get you more leads. And I'm like, oh, I should have put like some sort of, disqualifier in there for anybody who has like lead outreach in their profile. But so it was far more effort and expense than value. And
No,
so I ended that quickly and have no desire to do that again.
for sure. No, I definitely don't blame you, my friend. In regards to your website and the strategy you have from that perspective. Love what you're doing. We actually utilize very, very similar approaches internally and behalf of clients. Uh, I'm going to say it and then you can obviously expand on it. But basically, if you hit Jeff's website, he offers a free personalized audit report on your website. This does so many things for his organization. One is it builds law of reciprocity, right? You're giving away something for free that's actually valuable. Number two, you're showcasing your expertise without charging any money. I think it's fantastic. Again, we do something similar, but I'll pass the mic to you. Why are you doing that? Like, what's the philosophy behind all of that and type of results that you've seen?
Yeah, it's, you know, I think the mentality has always been, and this is not a knock on the way it's always been. But websites were brochures. You land on the website and it's trying to tell you all the different things that this company can do in hopes that you see something that sparks your interest, that gets you to a point where you're like, okay, I get it. They can do what I'm looking for. And now my next step is to book a call or fill out a lead form. And so it's a very, one-sided, one-way street, type of operation, right? I'm putting this out, the same brochure out to everyone, and hopefully the right people take the action I want them to take and reach out. And so the user really doesn't get value. And I look at it from a different angle, which is if someone's going to come to my website, I want them to get value, not just in the value of seeing my pricing, for example, right? Like, because you don't want people reach out and they're just, oh, wait, this guy's expensive. Well, yeah, I have a track record that allows me to be priced the way I am. But I'm upfront about that. So like, I'm not hiding it. I'm giving you that value up front of knowing what I charge. And so as I thought about adding more value to users who came to the site, I thought, you know what, maybe I can build a tool that can take a bunch of information and inputs from a potential, not even just necessarily a potential client, but from a company, and give them the type of thinking that I would deliver to them as well, but in a much lighter version. And so the brand assessment that I built does an analysis of the brand. It asks a bunch of questions, as it relates to, how they go to market, what their challenges are. And it gives a really detailed both SWOT analysis and a brand assessment to say, here are some of the gaps that are in existence with your current brand and your current strategy. Now, once someone has that, they can take that in-house, they can bring it to someone else and say, hey, look, based on Jeff's assessment, this is what some of those gaps are. Okay, if you're going to take it in-house or bring it to someone else to operate off that, at least I hope I helped, right? Like, hopefully I added value. Or in a lot of cases, so they reach out to me and say, hey, this was really detailed. There's a lot of stuff here. Like, where do I start and how can you help? And that's kind of the goal for me. So it's both, and again, me being transparent to give value to them, but also to be a lead magnet for me.
I love how you get pricing up front because I honestly do the exact same thing on my website. You hit my website, there's literally a pricing navigation bar. You hit it, that's our pricing. Like, not hiding anything about that. I also love the fact that you are providing value up front. So essentially, our USP, to be candid with you, we run AI powered email and LinkedIn. Two things that separate us. One is hyper personalization using enrichment layers and enrichment tools. The second one is opposed to asking for 15 minutes of your time, I'm giving you something of value that's specific to your company. And of course, like you already said it, but it's working. The one thing that I would love for you to kind of play with mentally is we started with the audit some odd time ago, and someone broke it down to me like this. They said, when you think of an audit, Jordan, what do you think of? And the first thing I thought of was the fucking IRS auditing my shit, man. I was like, get the IRS out of here. And he's like, okay, if you feel that way, other people may not want an audit. So how can we wrap the audit in a different word that they would want. And I thought, okay, let me think about that. And then I'm not gonna pretend I'm fucking a genius. But Alex Hermosi has this thing called a scaling roadmap. And I was like, dude, we can call it a roadmap. But it's the same fucking shit that's in the fucking audit, but it's just wrapped in a blanket called the roadmap. And like that, dude, that once a week right there has increased like positive reply rates, booking rates, all that fun stuff. So take that and run with it. Don't
I
change.
may. I've used, it in a lot of the outreach that I do and places I post. I do more often than not refer to it as an assessment
Okay.
versus an audit.
Right.
But you're right. The negative connotation that comes with it. Again, we talk as marketers, like, I tell my clients, like, we got to A/B test everything. Well, this is a perfect A/B test right here. Is, instead of a brand audit or a brand assessment, it's a brand roadmap. Great. Let's test that out. See if that changes anything.
For sure. Awesome. So happy I added that. Where did you learn to get pricing up front? So I am late 20s, early 20s. I got into sales. Grant Cardone was my first mentor. Watched him religiously, and he always said, "Get price up front, bro. Don't waste people's time. Time is valuable. Get price up front." And that's essentially where I learned it. But where did you learn? Similar?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's that same mentality, and I think it really came to me when I was having all of these calls with founders. Even the founders who had good products, good ideas, who, like, I really did, understand their business and was excited about it, and, like, those were meaningful conversations. Only to get to that point where I was then like, look, here's what I charge, and you kind of, like, the silence is deafening at that point where they're like, man, like, that's not even close to being in the realm of what we can, and so I was like, well, how do I overcome that? And I was like, well, first choice, my first option is, like, I can start off every call with that, which seems kind of, I don't know. I just felt uncomfortable with that. I felt like it was just, hey, before we dive deeper into learning about your business, let me tell you how expensive I am, because I'm really good. And so I was like, well, that approach isn't going to work. So then it came to, well, what if I'm just more transparent about my pricing? Now, like, it's not fixed pricing where it's, you can go and click and buy my time on my website. There are ranges, because every engagement is different, but it's there to give someone just a little bit of directionality on what it is that they're getting and what that cost might look like, to then also, with the experience that I have and the ability to say that I've helped startups raise $425 million. I've been a part of 4 exits at $2.5 billion. Like, now you can see, okay, well, this guy charges a good amount, but look at the results he's had. So maybe the value is in fact there, and this is worth the conversation that I want to have.
Absolutely.
And that was the most awkward thing I just said right there in talking about myself and those accomplishments. I felt weird just saying it, but what the hell? It's Friday.
I feel like you have to. I know it might feel weird, but maybe the mind's. I'm not saying that you're not proud of yourself.
It's on the website, right? Like, I have it on the website. Like, I have, so, like, I tell it. It's just when I, like, verbalize it, I don't want to come across as, cocky and look at this guy thinking he's, all that because he's, done these things. But at the same time, you're right. Like, I am my own marketing engine, right? Like, I don't have a team marketing me. I don't have some, fancy booth at a conference. There are never going to be a TV commercial or a Super Bowl ad of me. So all I can do is tell people, in the most humble way possible, like, yeah, I've got a lot of success under my belt. I'm really damn good at what I do, and I charge accordingly. And if that insults you or whatever it is, I'm sorry, and thank you for your attention.
For sure. I consume a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot, when I have free time, like net downtime, gym, cooking, laundry, whatever, I I listen to Alex Hermosi. He's a good guy. I listen to some AI gurus out there, Nick, like Sarvo, I think his name is. But nonetheless, if you listen to Alex's intro, just his hook, he assumes that someone brand new is listening to his content for the first time. And his hook is extremely specific about personal success. Why? Because it gives the audience like justification as to why I should listen to this mofo when there's probably hundreds, not hundreds of Alexes, but a lot of people
Yeah.
on on the internet spitting free game. And I have learned to do that because he's semi right. Why should they listen to me? If I don't verbally actually say why I'm valuable, they're not going to think I am. And like, think about it. I'm not saying people don't do this, but if they're listening to content, they found you on LinkedIn, only a sliver are actually going to hit your website and read our accolades. But if we
Yep.
just say it in our hook or say it on a podcast or maybe, I don't know, put it somewhere in our content, it's like, okay, yeah, that's why I should listen to this guy because he's done ABC. And you've done the fucking
No,
shit,
it's
man.
it's
Like,
it's it's a great point. So I'm in the process right now of finishing up, a book. It's my second book. The first one was more of a hobby project. This one's a much deeper, thoroughly researched case study book, all about, founders and how they go to market and brand strategy and separating their products from their brand and all of this stuff. And as I wrote it, and after I wrote it, now it's, being edited, and, we're working towards that final push. One of the questions that the publisher asked me was like, well, okay, so why would anyone care what you wrote? Like, why you? And, like, what makes you better or different than any other fractional CMO, brand person, marketing guru, whatever, and honestly, like, I sat there like dumbfounded for a minute, and I'm just like, I honestly can't sit here and say that I am so unique, that I am different from any and all fractional CMO that has ever walked this planet, right? Like, I could never make such a grandiose bullshit statement. But what I can say is, I've got 25 years of experience. I've worked at big companies like Google and AT&T, so I understand that world. I've spent the last 10 years working only with startups, and I understand that marketplace. I understand that mentality. I've helped them, like I said, raise this money and exit for, billions of dollars. And I think my story, my path is unique, but that doesn't make what I do, again, like, there are other fractional CMOs who are great. I've met them. I, partner with them or refer them if I'm not the right fit for a client. So it's not that there aren't other qualified, exceptional people out there, but I have a story and a background and a set of experiences that nobody else has, because that was my path. And that's the reason why I'm here and I do what I do, is because that's my path and that's what brought me here.
thank you for elaborating, my friend. And you said some serious shit right there. When it comes to audiences connecting with businesses, brands, and if we're a fractional CMO or a solo operator, you are the brand. How much do you think that correlation matters between here's like behind the scenes of who I am, here's my story, my accolades, where I come from, etc., and how that resonates with the audience? Like, I like his story. He's a real human, genuine person. I, Even though apples to apples comparison, this company does the exact same thing. I'm going with Jeff because I fucking like him. Like, how much do you think that matters?
It's I think it's important, and I think it's important in a lot of different ways. One of the ways that I show up every day for my clients is I am brutally honest. If there is something that I don't think will work, or a way that something can be done different or better, I'm going to voice my opinion because I feel like that's why I'm hired. That's the role that you've, hired for me, even if it's something outside of the world of marketing and brand, but there's a discussion about operations or business strategy. Because I've had the experience that I do, if I see a gap or a place where I can add value, I'm going to speak up and I'm going to poke holes and ask questions of the people in the room, not because I'm just doing it for fun, but I'm doing it because I think or hope or believe there may be ways to make better decisions, different decisions, improvements, whatever. And there have been founders who have said to me after 3-month engagement, look, this just isn't going to work, and I'm like, okay, tell me why. And in a lot of cases, the answer is we're just trying to figure out so many things, and you're asking questions, poking holes in things. And like, honestly, we just don't want that right now. We need someone to stay in their lane, focus on building a marketing organization. And that's what we're ultimately looking for. We don't want, we don't want anybody, pushing back against the engineering team, against, the finance team or sales team or whatever it is. And okay, like if that's your approach, if that's how you want to operate, like I have no problem with that. I'm happy to say thank you for the opportunity and move on. But that's an important caveat, right? That's my personality, is I don't ever want to sit on the sideline and not speak up. And I'll tell you the reason why, true to my core of why I believe that. Even if they're paying me $10,000 a month to focus on the brand, the marketing, and all of those things, ultimately, they are giving me a percentage of their budget, of the money they have available, because they expect and want their company to grow and to thrive and be more successful. And so even though the money they're giving me is for their marketing side of the business, their brand side of the business, I would feel guilty if I sat in a room and heard things or didn't ask questions that also would impact the success of the business. So even though it doesn't fall under the purview of my $10,000 investment, it still falls under the fact that you're investing in me to help the organization as a whole. And so that's how I, articulate that to clients. And there are some that appreciate the hell out of that. And I'm in every room and every decision because that's how I can add more value. And then, like I said, there are some that just, that's not how they operate. They want people to, stay siloed and focus on the things they're focused on because they don't want the pushback. They don't want, to have that part of their culture. And that's, in my opinion, that's not the right way, but it's their way.
Completely agree. You are a CMO. Forget the word fractional. You're a CMO. Right. Think about what a CMO does. They sit on the board. They're in team meetings. They're a freaking executive within an organization. Like, they're going to poke holes in your shit like how any other CMO would. So to the people, to the businesses out there hiring you or any other fractional CMO, and they do not want them poking holes in their business, shouldn't hire a fucking fractional CMO, dude.
And that's anytime, and this is a very common thing. I actually just posted about it on LinkedIn a bit ago, is a client called me, this was last year, but they called me up and they're like, hey, Jeff, we're going in a different direction. And, whatever it is, okay, tell me more. And their response was like, well, we had been talking about the business was struggling and we needed to, execute up, things faster. And there was a lot of conversations that I was having with them, but they were also having a lot of other conversations that I was not privy to. And so they came to me, hey, we're going to go in a different direction because we need X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, well, why didn't you ever talk about that? Why is this the first I'm hearing of it? Because we could have gotten in front of it. And the guy started, the response was, well, when we hired an agency, we were expecting, and I was like, whoa, like I'm not an agency. And he was like, well, okay, sorry. He was like, but you're a contractor. And I'm like, herein lies the problem, is like, you thought like I'm just a contractor, right? Like because I'm not full-time, therefore I am less valuable. And that's sometimes what happens with the word fractional. People means, well, fraction of time, fraction of cost, fraction of value. And that's not true, because yes, it's less time and less cost because your organization probably doesn't need or can't support that level of cost at that time. But you hopefully and should be extracting maximum value instead of fractional value. And so you're dead on. Like, hiring a fractional CMO still means you have a CMO, strategy, part of the business operations, part of what is going to get you from point A to point B. Not the fraction of the business you can focus on is only this.
You shed a lot of light on how maybe some parts of the world view fractional CMOs. To be honest with you, I never thought about it that way, but doesn't mean other people think about it, and you clearly have a firsthand example. I just hear the word CMO and it's like, great, like they fucking know what they're doing. Or like, right, fractional COO. I mean, you don't just wake up one day and like, okay, well, not wake up one day. You can't just spawn into that. You have to have 25 years of experience working for some major companies, and then you could have the confidence to step out into the marketplace and become a CMO or COO, whatever the case is.
Yeah. I mean, I know exactly who I am, what I do, what I'm good at, the value I bring to an organization, the role I play when I'm there, and why that translates into what my business looks like, how many clients I take on at a time, and what I charge for it. And I'm going to stay true to that. And I'm not going to mold that based on, a definition that others want to put on what fractional is or isn't, or what outsourced means versus doesn't mean. That's their problem, right? I know who I am and what I do.
I love it, Jeff. I really do wish we had more time. You were one of my favorite guests, and I said that on air. Moving into future pacing here, talk about some goals. What's the number one thing you're looking forward to in the next 18 months, in the next 12 to 18 months?
I mean, it's the same things, right? Like, I want to continue to learn and grow. And, part of that is, spending more time in AI and learning different ways I can leverage it for me as well as for my clients, and adding value on that front. Having a pipeline would be great, so I could maybe sleep a little bit better at night. But at the same time, like, I'm fortunate in that because of the business that I've built, like, I don't have guilt when I, take time off to spend with my kids and take them to baseball practice and, travel the world and other things that we want to do, because that is ultimately, how I will get judged in my life. It is the role and the impact that I've had on them. And I volunteer a ton, both like at the local school, I volunteer in a local youth organization, I volunteer in a dog shelter. So, like, I want to give my time in places that are going to have a positive impact. Of course, I wish I could get paid for all those, volunteer things that I love to do. But, I want to just continue to do that and, have the fulfillment that I get from working with great people who not only I can help them, but they also help me, kind of learn and grow and just be a better overall human.
You're just a wholesome guy, aren't you?
I try to be. I try to be. Some days better than others, but I try to be.
For sure. And then side note, I played baseball for a very long time, my favorite sport. So shout out to your kids. That's awesome.
Yep.
What is the single best piece of advice you've ever received?
I had a boss, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago. His name is Bob. And he used to have a saying, which is, do what you say you're going to do. You say you're going to deliver something on time, at such and such a date, do it. Now, obviously things come up and, but you can, go and say, well, in advance, right? Like, hey, I know I said I'd get that to you on Friday. Like, I'm actually a little behind. Can I get it to you Monday? But all the things, right? Like, when you commit to something, follow that up. Do what you say you're going to commit to, because the worst thing is to commit to something, give someone else the calm of, okay, we're in a good shape because Jeff committed to X, Y, and Z. And then if you don't follow through, not only does that impact yourself, but it impacts them as well. And so I believe deeply in that. So when I tell clients, when I tell friends, when I commit to something and give my word that I'm going to show up, do this, deliver X, it is because I have strategically and intentionally decided I'm going to commit to that and put my name on it.
That's great advice. A lot of people somehow fuck that up. But like
All the time. All the time. I mean, just even this week, I had an email from someone who's like, hey, I'm going to get this to you end of day. No problem. End of day comes, nothing. The next day I reach out, no response. A day and a half later, hey, I'm working on it. Okay, well, should have been working on it today, and it's just, so I've committed to, someone else that, hey, this thing is going to be done over here. You should have it by, Wednesday. And then, come Wednesday, I'm like, I don't know where it is. Like, that's the kind of thing that kills a reputation and kills, the ability to actually build a meaningful organization.
I was talking to somebody else and they're a brand strategist and they said, replace the word brand with reputation. That's what branding is. And right there, you fucking nailed it. If you destroy your reputation, your brand, your business brand is gone in the garbage.
Yeah. It's the reason why people make subconscious decisions all the time when it comes to their purchasing and other things. And it's all emotional based, and the only way your emotions are either going, there's kind of three emotions you're going to have. You're either going to be, like a deep attraction, connection, positive. You're going to be completely negative of like, I will never buy that product, brand, whatever. Or like you're indifferent, neutral for things that don't matter, right? It's the same reason why when you ask, and I saw a survey about this years ago, when they asked kids, or they asked, early 20-year-olds, what brand of toilet paper do you buy? And they would tell the answer, and the follow-up, well, why do you buy that brand? And the answer was always, well, that's just what we always used to buy when I was a kid. That's what was in my house. And it's like those kinds of things. It's a subconscious, well, if this was good enough for my parents and for us as a family, then it's probably good enough for my family, right? And those are the kind of things that like subconsciously you don't intentionally think about. You don't walk into the store being like, what toilet paper did my parents buy when I was a kid? But you see it and you're like, oh, that's familiar. I know that brand. There's some comfort there. That's what I'm going to buy as well.
Jeff, I fucking love it. I legit wish we had more time, my friend.
I mean, who doesn't want to end a podcast with a conversation about toilet paper?
No. The reason why I get so fucking excited is because the brand strategists that changed the word brand to reputation, I was articulating to them that most humans make decisions based off of fucking emotion. And you definitely expanded on it and gave a prime example with TP. And it's just like, that's why I was getting excited. But like, I fucking love it, Jeff. Legit.
100%. All emotions.
If they wanted to explore your work further, where can they find you?
They can visit my website at misnomer.co. Or, obviously on LinkedIn. I'm there. I'm visible. I am posting content frequently. So feel free to reach out.
Perfect. Audience, thanks so much for tuning in. Jeff, we'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Thanks so much.